Accessibility is described as the quality of being able to be reached or entered. In this video, different factors that can attribute to someone's accessibility to health are going to be discussed. The goal is to educate people on different topics such as location, education, nutrition, drug and alcohol use, regular checkups, and insurance.
So these are all major contributors to someone's lifestyle. They can put certain people at an advantage while others are at a disadvantage, especially when it comes to their health.
A major factor that can be considered almost the umbrella to all the other topics that are going to be discussed in this video is definitely location and socioeconomic status. So the American Psychology Association states that socioeconomic status can encompass the quality of life attributes as well as opportunities and privileges afforded to people in society. So specifically when comparing Wilmington, Delaware, a more urban area, to Hockessin, Delaware, a more suburban area, there was an evident difference in lifestyle, specifically dealing with income and race between these two different communities. So in Wilmington, Delaware, it was found that the average resident makes around $29,000 annually, while the average household makes around $42,000 annually. In comparison to Hockessin, Delaware, where the average resident makes almost $56,000 annually, and the average household in Hockessin, Delaware makes around $121,000 annually. So as you can see, there's almost double the income happening in Hockessin in comparison to Wilmington, Delaware. So due to these statistics from bestplaces.net, it would not be wrong to assume that people of lower socioeconomic status tend to be linked with living in a more urban area, specifically Wilmington, Delaware, from the example given before. So in addition, Wilmington, Delaware's demographics show that in 2018, the population was around 72,000 people, consisting of 58% African American, 32% whites, 1% Asian, and 9% all other races. In comparison to Hockessin, Delaware, where the demographics in 2018 show the population to be 13,702 people living there, consisting of only 4.3% African Americans, 82.9% whites, 11.9% Asians, and 0.9% other races, showing that there is clearly some correlation with more African Americans and minorities living in urban areas such as Wilmington, Delaware, in comparison to Hockessin, Delaware, a more suburban area. So therefore, this indicates that lower socioeconomic status and lower socioeconomic status is associated with lower social class and a higher percentage of minorities. So social class can be shown to be a significant factor in influencing career aspirations, trajectory, and achievement. So basically having a lower income can add to a family's overall economic stress and personal finance constraints, which in turn has the ability to affect children in the picture, and this can add emotional distress and depression. And this is again mentioned by the American Psychology Association. In addition, it can affect one's desire to even hold a good career and make big achievements in life due to their social class and having a lower socioeconomic status. So overall, location is a very, very, very important factor and can definitely contribute to one's overall health.
Stemming off Lindsay's topic of location is the important aspect of education, which is highly influenced by where you are. In a quote by the American Psychological Association, they state that research indicates children from low SES households and communities develop academic skills slower than children from higher ones. The school systems in low SES communities are often under-resourced, negatively affecting students' academic progress and outcomes. Inadequate education and increased dropout rates affect children's academic achievement, perpetuating the low SES status of the community. A way to compare how successful a school is comes down to standardized percentages and college readiness. The number one ranked school in Delaware, the Wilmington Charter School, has an 81% college readiness score. Meanwhile, you go down the road to Mount View Pleasant, the 7th ranked school in Delaware, who has a 22% college readiness score. This disparity, I believe, is extremely evident in the comparison of these two schools based off these percentages, with even more discrepancies in the standardized reading and math scores. These schools, also for their surprising lack of distance between them, have vastly different populations. Wilmington Charter is 60% white, and Mount View Pleasant is made up of 55% minority groups. Even deeper, Mount View Pleasant has 25% of students that are considered economically disadvantaged versus Wilmington Charter's 4%. You may be wondering why, if they are so close, that there isn't more equality. This again relates back to location, in that the area around Wilmington Charter has an average annual income of $140,000 with a median house cost of $738,000. And down the road, you have Mount View Pleasant with an average annual income of $63,000 and a median house cost of $218,000. This correlation of population to area to the rankings of the school, I feel, shows the stark characteristics of educational disparities. The topics coming up in this video will also fall under the umbrella of education and how this inequality can lead to more disparities throughout a human's development and life.
When it comes to health disparities, food deserts is a term used to describe areas with little to no access to healthy foods or abundance of energy-dense foods but not nutrient-dense foods. Convenience stores such as 7-Eleven are prime examples of food deserts, and today we're going to take a look at the inside of such an establishment. Here you see many forms of very sugary foods such as ring pops, gummies, chocolate. What all these have in common is high levels of high fructose corn syrup and significant amounts of sugar. Oftentimes in food deserts, there is a huge lack of access to affordable and nutritious foods such as fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And instead of grocery stores or farmers markets, these areas have convenience stores and gas stations with limited shelf space available for healthy options. The consequences of this can intersect a lot with race and culture, but most importantly, they can cause chronic conditions such as heart disease, stroke, and in some cases even cancer. So next time you are in the grocery store or the 7-Eleven and you see something that might look tasty, you should think twice or look away. But as long as there are healthier options, you can always eat healthier. Although 7-Elevens are generally associated with food deserts, there are actually some 7-Elevens that have access to foods that are organic or fresh, such as the ones we see here. Obviously, apples are very nutrient rich, and these sandwiches are freshly made every day. However, these 7-Elevens are generally located in high economic areas. Drug abuse is a huge problem when it comes to low-income areas, as it has been proven that wealthier people are exposed to less risk factors that predispose themselves to substance abuse and addiction. In addition, higher levels of exposure to biopsychosocial and economic stressors, along with the greater difficulty in coping, leads to extreme levels of substance abuse. Oftentimes, these substances are even prescribed by physicians or stolen from pharmacies, or simply synthesized themselves in their backyard using store-bought ingredients. When it comes to access to health, lower income areas actually have decreased access to health due to lack of transportation, closing of pharmacies, as you can see here, and these can associate with very poor healthcare outcomes, as certain individuals are not able to access the medications and treatment that they require to live free of chronic illnesses and or death.
Hi, I'm Julia, and I'm going to be giving you the 411 on what health insurance is and why you need it. So to start, what even is health insurance? It's talked about all the time, it's advertised constantly, and presidential candidates even have entire speeches about how they plan to improve healthcare and health insurance when they're running for office. But why? Well, look, no one plans to get sick. No one wakes up in the morning and says, I'd like to be sick today. That's not what happens. But what does happen is that things occur unexpectedly that cause people to need medication, a visit to the doctor, or even surgical intervention. However, these can all be very pricey aspects of feeling better and getting someone back to normal. And health insurance is what protects you from those high costs. You pay for it monthly, and there are individual and family plans. They can be expensive though, and while the prices range depending on the plan, it costs about $400 to $500 for a single adult's health insurance and more than double for a family plan. Things that alleviate some of this cost is the job that someone has. So if you have a great job, chances are they offer great health insurance. However, if you're of lower socioeconomic status, you don't have a college degree, or fall victim to any other variable that excludes you from having a good job, or one that offers health insurance, you're going to pay more. So, for this reason, some people just don't have health insurance at all, and that can be dangerous because medical prices really add up. For example, a visit to the doctor's office for any reason at all can be $200 to $300, and a simple birth control prescription can cost well over $500 for just a 3-month supply. Which leads me to my next point of regular checkups and physicals. Of course, if someone doesn't have health insurance, they're going to be less likely to go because they know it's going to cost them a lot more money out of pocket. But other reasons people don't take action and seek doctors on a regular basis can be due to location and education. If you live in a rural area where you don't have access to a doctor, studies show that you're less likely to go because it's out of the way, it's too costly to get there, or you can't take off work to dedicate the entire day to a doctor visit and traveling there. Similarly, if you aren't properly educated about the need for checkups, you won't know that it's pertinent to go. So you can start to see how not having health insurance, living in an area that lacks a dense population of physicians, and not being educated can have an impact on someone's health. The less you go to a doctor, the less you know about your body, and many people die from diseases that could have been cured had they gone to the doctor earlier. For example, white and black women are diagnosed with breast cancer at the same rate, but black women die from it more frequently. This is because many times the cancer has already spread to a more aggressive form and it's too late to treat it effectively. So, to conclude, health insurance and regular checkups with your physician are essential and have serious impacts on someone's health and lifespan.
So today I want to talk about a real-world example of the effects of access and accessibility to health and healthcare in minority communities, and just talk about how it really impacts people and their real lives every single day. So basically, I watched this video about a woman named Michelle Simmons, who is a mother and now grandmother, and she grew up in West Baltimore and still lives there. And she talks about how her community has, over time, really changed, and how it definitely has had a huge impact on her health. She's a grandmother now, like I said, and she suffers from diabetes. And she talks a lot about how her community has really shaped the way that her health has manifested over time, especially when she was a child. She talks about how she didn't have education about what foods were good to eat and nutrition and how to exercise, and schools in her community just didn't teach that. And she compares it to other communities in which kids learn about that all the time because they have better funding for their schools and just better educational opportunities, and that's a huge thing, she said, that affected her growing up. She also talks about how her community has really failed her in a lot of ways when it comes to her health, mainly in the fact that she doesn't have access to healthcare and doctors and people in her community that can help her. And she compares it to other communities where people have access to doctors and doctors want to help them and things like that. And in her community, it's just really lacking in that way. And she said she talks about how she grew up in a community where people just didn't know how to be proactive about their own health, and they didn't know what was good for them and what wasn't, because their community just wasn't teaching them how to do that.